I don't feel like there was any way to feel fully prepared for this episode because there's so much fucking shit.
It is kind of a big one. Like, I feel like every band that we cover is going to have like the one album that it feels like the hardest episode to do, or the most like, the toughest one to tackle or to talk about.
Yeah. And like this one is well, never mind. We're not going to do the episode before we do the episode. Welcome to Noise Floor, a podcast about music through the lens of our favorite artists' discographies. I'm Matt Kistler.
And I'm Troy Sennett.
And today we are continuing, or rather back on, our series about Detroit-based collective The Armed. This week we are talking specifically about their ULTRAPOP era, which I'm referring to as an era because it does feel like it has a whole arc, which we will get to. The album itself was released in April of 2021, April 16th, kind of very staunchly mid-pandemic, or maybe early, depending on how you look at it, but released on Sgt. Howard's Records. We do have a single leading up to that that happened pre-pandemic, which I think is very worth talking about before we get to the album proper. And that is the Adult Swim single featuring Frank Turner. This song notably does feature Frank Turner without his prior knowledge or consent. Troy, what did you make of this song?
So I still to this day do not know which parts of the song are allegedly like Frank Turner unreleased demos or whatever. But I think the whole idea behind this is hilarious. Stealing a Frank Turner sample, building a song around it, and then only acknowledging in the interviews that it's Frank Carter from Gallows. It's a great bit, great joke.
Great bit.
Yeah, I don't know whether Frank Turner is in on it, whether he is or not. I think it's funny because I think it's funny to do something silly at his expense sometimes. But I don't know. I think it's a pretty solid Armed song. For some reason, I thought this came out after ULTRAPOP. But no, it is 2019. So I was gonna say that ULTRAPOP was my first exposure to the Armed, but I think this actually must have been, because I remember when this came out and thinking that it was absurd and very funny.
Yeah, it's for those who don't know, like, the full Frank Turner finding out about this story. There's just a series of tweets where he is basically like, so yeah, the samples that are used of me in this song are from like sessions 8 years ago that are not publicly available at all. They are like basically on hard drives in the studio. I have no idea how they got these. If they'd asked me, I probably would have let them use them, but they didn't. So that kind of sucks. Overall, like, not a very like huge response, but a notable one for sure. But yeah, solid Armed song. I don't think I remember this one coming out. I think I found out about it kind of after the fact. But yeah, it does also have a video, which is absolutely buck wild. Features more people in ghillie suits. This time they're skateboarding and lighting things on fire. Kind of rules. And then at the end of, or towards the end of the video, one of them gets hit by a car, and the other ghillie-suited person is revealed to be Dan Green, which he will figure into this whole arc quite a bit, but we'll get to that in just a second. Did you end up watching the video, Troy?
Yeah, the video is great. Just another video that is shot better than you would ever expect a video for, a hardcore band or whatever to be shot. It's that weird combination of like upsetting and funny that I don't know. It fits with their kind of, they do a lot of stuff with Adult Swim, which I think this actually did premiere on Adult Swim. Is that right?
Yeah, it was part of their singles series.
Yeah, it feels right. The tone feels right for that.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, kind of following this, we get to 2021, where in terms of like the public awareness of this album cycle is concerned, early 2021, I think like maybe late 2020, but definitely by early 2021, this website called the Book of Daniel .church, or rather the actual URL, if you do want to go to it, is book of Daniel.church. And it is, unsurprisingly, given that we are talking about it here, actually a promo website for ULTRAPOP. There's a few a few notable things about this website. One is it looks like it was made in like 1995, which absolutely rules, complete with Netscape Now and Internet Explorer little icons in the top right, plus a little media player that plays a track referred to as lumber.mp3, which sounds an awful lot like an armed MIDI demo like we talked about in our first episode. Yeah, you should just check this thing out. But basically, it contains some promo items for ULTRAPOP, kind of sets the stage for, ultimately what will happen in ULTRAPOP Live at the Masonic, but also like kind of seeds some of the aesthetic for the music videos of this era, and just kind of the overall arc of this album cycle. It also notably has a guest book, which actually just sends you to the Armed's Discord, who are very nice people. If you're a fan of this band and you're not already in the Discord, you just check out the Discord. It's fun. Everybody's super cool.
Yeah, so this is like this is the real, not beginning, but like the culmination of this of the Armed as like a cultish, projecting this image of like a cultish sort of mythological, bigger than any member or any album sort of thing. Like this is what they're kind of known for now.
Yeah, for sure. And like that's touched on like literally every interview around this time. Like the question will come up, so you guys realize that it sounds like you're a cult? And the answer is always, yeah, I realize it sounds like that. I think at one point,
this is also peak. Like none of these interviews that they give around this time feel like they are real interviews. Like they all feel like they've also scripted the journalist side of it too, or that they have that they're sending someone who's not in the band to do the interview or some insane thing like that, right? Like
sort of. So this is an interesting thing with this kind of cycle of press around this album, because we have I guess I should point out, like, the Daniel in question here is Dan Green, kind of the central figure of the Armed, the de facto leader. He's talked about a lot by like Adam Vallely in his interviews, but there's also this interview from I'm blanking on the author's name, Max Frank, who did the profile of the Armed that we talked about on the last episode. Interviews Dan Green for Interview Magazine, and it is maybe more absurd than the original profile that he did, where he went to the Armed house in Detroit, where they rented the Porsche and everything, and then went to the horse track. Like this whole interview feels meticulously scripted in a lot of ways. Like these two feel like they are long-standing enemies, and like following the kind of arc of what happened in the original interview, I can totally see where that would like sort of come naturally, but like it almost every like response from Green and from Max Frank feel like almost too perfectly aligned in a weird way, like aligned but adversarial. There's a point in the Dan Ozzie interview with Adam where he says, I was pitched by Max to do the original profile, and I since am not sure if he's a real person. And Adam like assures him, he's like, no, Max Frank is a real person. Does not elaborate on what that means at all, notably. So like it does feel like, this absolutely could be like a like specifically curated thing, like most interactions with Dan Green are, it kind of seems like. But the interviews with Adam feel a little more natural for the most part. I I guess specifically the podcast that Dan Ozzie did with him, because it feels a little more off the cuff. They mostly just end up talking about bodybuilding, which is what a lot of people want to talk to the Armed about in this era, because everybody's introduction to this album is a live video of them playing All Futures, where everybody is just absolutely jacked in a well-lit room. And it is notably like one of the first times that it was like explicitly said, like, this is the Armed right now playing this song. Like it, and obviously that's, you know, its own thing with regards to like, no, it's not the whole collective, but like, this is a subset of people who are in the Armed playing this song in a well-lit room. You can see all their faces. They are all named, and there's also a very big guy on keyboards named Clark Huge, which absolutely rules. I don't know, what else did you kind of take away from the press cycle around this album, Troy?
I just think it's fascinating. Is you know, okay, so many bands, especially big, or you know, artists, especially bigger artists, spend so much time trying to construct their public image in a way that is, you know, whether they want to be seen as like cutesy and nice or kind of intense or whatever it is. Like, you know, actors do this, musicians do this, all, you know. And so in a way, this sort of obscuring of the actual band members' identities and then revealing them, which then this may or may not be the quote unquote real band, whatever it is. Like, all this stuff is in service of constructing what they want, how they want the Armed to be perceived. And it's no more or less fake ultimately than any other, you know, public persona, which I think is the idea. And then, you know, to go like, to extend that to, we're basically, I mean, I think the sort of premise of Ultrapop, right, is that they are kind of constructing a genre in a way. Like, here's a way into heavy music that is not, you know, harsh in the way that heavy music is typically considered. Like, it's this juxtaposition of the ugly and the beautiful. It's the, you know, what is it? There's a quote from the interview. One of the more earnest sounding quotes from the Interview magazine interview is like, confusion in terms of the mix, the presentation, the sonics thus becomes both a priming technique as well as a format. Like, I think all of these things, you know, from the you know, the like ARG thing with the book of Daniel and the aesthetic and the bodybuilding stuff, it's all like pretty fascinatingly constructed, and it's like it feeds this fervor of fans who are like, oh, I want to know more about this band that's making this music that sounds like kind of no one else going right now. But if it was all that and the music wasn't really anything, it would be kind of laughed off. Like, I feel like, I don't know if you remember the Shown stuff from like 15 years ago or whatever. Do you remember that band?
I don't think I do.
Oh, it was a similar, like, here's all these mysterious clues and strange websites, and you got to go out into the forest, and there was geocaching and all this stuff around it, and like, and everyone thought it was for a brand new album, but it was like a side project or whatever. This band called Shown. And like, and that was like, and now I think of that and I kind of laugh. It's like, oh, but it was kind of it was more marketing than substance. Whereas I think, you know, I think the Armed know that they've got something pretty special with Ultrapop, and so I think it is justified to do kind of this crazy guerrilla marketing stuff to build up to it. I don't, does that make sense at all?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And like, I think that really is kind of the drive behind this. Like, I guess there's a couple of parts to like kind of what we're talking about here. One is the like kind of the ways in which the pseudo anonymity of the band has helped and hindered them, and like kind of quote unquote backfired in ways, which is something that's discussed a lot in this kind of press cycle, especially around, you know, this sort of reveal of folks who are like definitely performing live in the band. The other is kind of the kind of a revival of the thing that we were talking about with the Untitled record, which is like stagnation in art but specifically this time talking about the stagnation of like heavy music in general. Like there's a lot of quotes in these interviews that are along the lines of like, yeah, man, grindcore was invented 30 years ago. Why do people still want to do that exact thing? Which is like a very, it's stated non-pretentiously, and like there's kind of a, you know, there's an understanding that like, yeah, we get that like people want to make music like that, but like we don't want to. We want to, you know, create something new. We want to push the envelope. We want to, you know, keep moving forward in terms of this kind of cacophonous mix of hardcore and pop and everything else that we're doing here. There was a really good quote around how everything is pop somewhere in here.
Literally just going to read that exact quote. I have it copied into my notes.
Please and thank you.
It's from an interview with the Quietest that they did. I don't remember which member of the band was saying this, but I have it. I did not write it down. But they were saying, I think the idea of what is subversive is kind of hilarious now when everyone has a phone that can pull up the entire history of art all at once, instantaneously. What isn't pop at that moment? Which I think is, yeah, I think that feels exactly right. Like, they are taking in the entire like cultural soup of the last 50 or whatever years and trying to come up with something that hasn't been done before. And, you know, and I think we talked, yeah, like I said, we talked about this in Only Love. If we feel like they are just critiquing, or if they actually feel that they're doing something truly original or somewhere in between. And this, trying to embrace everything and elevate everything at once. And I mean, I don't feel like I've ever heard a record that sounds quite like ULTRAPOP. I don't know that it's gonna end up being my favorite Armed record. We'll see. But it is a pretty fascinating record to just to take in.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Like I remember. Like just to give background, like this is kind of where I came in. For my first exposure to my first exposure to the Armed that led to me going, oh, I want to know more about this band, was that Live All Futures video. So like I was kind of on board for this whole like album cycle. I didn't dive very deep, as evidenced by my very bad explanation of everything that led up to the actual release, but yeah, I think I reviewed this album for Chirp, reviewed big air quotes, basically listened to it a bunch and told people what songs were good for the radio station. And I just like, I hadn't felt that strongly about a record in a while. In that, like for background for folks who don't know, I'm an assistant music director at this station. And I think the album had like gotten missed by like a couple weeks, and I like went in and I was like, I'm reviewing this album myself. I'm going to tell the other music directors that this needs to be in heavy rotation, and I like don't care who hates it, because I know that this is not the normal type of music we play. Like everyone needs to hear this album, and I still really kind of feel that way about this record. Like it is truly special. In like kind of my personal canon, just because, yeah, I had never heard anything quite like it before. And in many ways since, aside from future Armed albums, and even those are different from this in like very marked ways.
So yeah, I think your evangelism of this record is probably what led me to check it out in the first place. I was not really a fan of it the first time I heard it when it came out. I think that I was kind of, not necessarily by you, but probably by some other people too, sold to me as like, oh, this is actually kind of a poppy album, which I mean, it has hooks, but I don't think it is like, I think I expected something more accessible than it actually is. And I've gotten much more into heavy music in the what, 4.5 years since then. So I can appreciate it a lot more now than I did in 2021.
That's fair. Yeah. I think the way that it is positioned to you probably does like kind of color how you go into it in a lot of ways. And like, since it is hard to like describe it, you kind of have to come at it from like, well, it's a hardcore album, or well, it's a hardcore album that's also kind of a pop album. And like, that's not actually helpful with regards to like describing the actual sound of this record.
Yeah, so the pop thing is so that's the hardest thing to sort of sell someone on, because like this record is called Ultra Pop, and you can say like it's a hardcore record with pop elements, but if I played this for like my dad, there's no question he was like, this is not pop music at all, and so. And
right.
Obviously, that's another part of the quote from that Quietus interview is like, we're trying to subvert the idea that extreme music can only be harsh in a way that's traditionally masculine yelling. Like they're trying to achieve intensity in different ways, and which I think they do achieve on this album. But yeah, and like I said earlier, it feels like they're trying to invent a genre. What's the other thing they say? Oh, they say we're going to try to save rock music by killing it, which I think is kind of a fun, grandiose idea, which aligns with this sort of superhuman version of a band that they're doing with the bodybuilding and everything too. It's all of a piece on this, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Should we start getting into the songs?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. So this album starts off with a title track that is an immediate, just complete departure from what you typically think of as the Armed sound. It's still like tense and a dense mix, but this is all ethereal, clean vocals. It's synths, it's pulsing kick drums and sub synths. What do you think of this as an opening track?
I think this is a great opening track. I don't know that it works outside of the context of being an opening track, which it is not a knock against it. Like, it really serves its purpose. But like, if this was in the middle of a live set, I would be a little weirded out. But like, yeah, it's like nice in a way compared to everything we've kind of heard before this. Like, big air quotes nice, because like we get this like kind of cool like deep distorted bass and keys, which is like not like noisy by any means, but like then we get these like kind of subtle, like we've got the clean vocals, but underneath the clean vocals we've got them doubled with this like really fuzzed out like doubling of that vocal line, and it's like it's not noticeable if you're not paying attention, but like it obviously thickens up the mix the way that any vocal doubling does, but it also like creates this sense of foreboding that is only backed by this like kind of noise and feedback that kicks in a little while after.
Yeah, the layers of just like really gross sounding synths that come in like midway through the song are that's a great sound.
What do you think of the video for this one? Because it's not a lot, but it is a lot at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things they released it in segments on USB sticks, so it's a cool, like, the people have to assemble it in a way, or you only get a little taste of it. But I don't know, it's a cool image. It's a vintage TV with some books on top, including a Schwarzenegger bodybuilding book and a book about Scientology. Just to play into the Armed as a cult thing. And
Sure.
I mean, it's similar to some other videos they've done where it's sort of a lot of interspersed images of people with like these bold terms overlaid over their faces, or like makeup that kind of calls back to some of the other visual elements of the previous eras. It's I don't know. It's one of those. They said in one of the interviews, I don't remember if it was for this album or the last one, where they're like, we're good at making a little bit of money look like a lot of money, which I think is evident even on like such a simple video like this.
Yeah, that was the Quietus interview, because that was when they asked the interviewer asked, what would you do with a U2 budget?
Oh,
and
yeah.
he was like, Adam was like, we would blow it all, but we would make something really cool with it because we know how to make a lot with a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Which is really fucking cool.
Yep. So then next up is All Futures. This was the, like we were talking about, the lead single from the album. And this is, where you get a little bit more of the Armed. It's like, this song is like dance punk through the band's really distorted, dirty lens. It's a pretty cool sound, and it's like I said, it's where you get the Armed, but it's also sounds like nothing they've done before.
Right? Yeah. Like thankfully, and by thankfully I mean like in a weird bout of consistency from Genius.com, all of these tracks have like some degree of commentary from Adam Vallely on them.
Yeah, it's the Apple Music.
I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right.
It's the Apple Music.
The Apple Music
interviews. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like he kind of talks about how like, yeah, that intro is like quote unquote throwing you into the deep end by subverting your expectations fully, and then this is just like, but also we're going to introduce you to all the sonic elements of this album, which is going to culminate in something that you can recognize as an Armed song, but like also kind of doesn't sound like anything we've done before, which is like, that's such a fascinating thing about this band, is that like they do keep evolving and changing their sound, but there is just something at their core that is so recognizable. And like, I'm sure it can be qualified and quantified in many ways, but like kind of taking a middle distance look at it, like it's just kind of fascinating how cohesive their sound is, despite it morphing and changing drastically over time.
Yeah, it's always recognizable. But one of the elements that I think it's very important to bring up on this album is they yet again have a new guest drummer. I think this is the best way to describe their drummer situation in general, is they get a featured guest drummer on each album. And on this one, it's Urian Hackney from the band Rough Francis, and he is a beast.
He's so good.
Doesn't really play like Chris Penny or Ben Kohler or Nick Yakishin, but man, he just has this like. There are multiple times in this album when I was thinking, like, I'm pretty sure that's a drum machine, and no, it's actually that their drummer is just a machine.
Yeah, he's actually super incredible. He drums. I think he's drummed for Iggy Pop recently.
Yeah, he's filled in for Converge.
He he's subbed in for Converge. He released a dub album recently, so like dude's got range, which is not surprising given the lineup of drummers that we've had so far. But like, I think he really like brings something special to this album. Just incredible drumming on this record throughout. Like, if we don't say it for every track, it's true for every track. It
really is, yeah. And I guess the one thing we should talk about, kind of the lyrics of the song, which they talk about being a sort of anti-edgelord anthem. This idea that it's just like contrarianism for its own sake doesn't actually add anything. Like, you actually have to create and build something meaningful. Which is, just more evident of the Arms sort of ethos.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's, and I mean, this is something that we've kind of talked about on this podcast before. Maybe not on mic, but if we haven't, just kind of this, when you grow up in the punk rock scene, which many of the people in this band have, you usually, like, for the most part, people like kind of keep the ethos. Like, they might, go off and get adult jobs or whatever, and like, that's not a big deal. But the thing that is horrifying is when people like kind of hold on to this attitude of like contrarianism for contrarianism's sake, and it can take a real dark turn at times. There are people that I grew up with who are definitely neo-Nazis now. Don't know where they are, but I don't ever want to run into them again, so I guess it doesn't matter. But like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a kind of thing that you can maybe only speak to in this way when you come from a scene like this.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, because it is, the idea of being like, I'm so punk that I hate everything, and I've got something, way to put down everything that that seems popular or cool or whatever. Yeah, that's like a character type you run into a lot.
Yeah.
But I think this idea of being of like forging a real connection and kind of an earnest understanding of art is as we get into Matsunaga Vapors, the next song, which is like a song about an art thief who had a particular connection to the pieces that he stole, which is kind of a fascinating story in its own. This is also now the album has truly taken off into heavier than anything I've ever heard Armed territory.
Yeah, this song really, like, we get that kind of seamless transition from All Futures, and then we get these like really awesome soaring ascending guitar riffs.
The guitars in this song are crazy.
They really are. Like, it is like this one is, we use this phrase a lot when talking about this band, but this song is truly relentless, with the exception of like a 1 second reprieve that happens at like a minute and 28. Otherwise, it's just like blast beat city left and right, like kind of the one instrument thing that we were talking about with Only Love. Like, yeah, this song is just in your face at all times, and I love it.
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out here that Zach Weeks mixed this, and I mean he I think killed this mix. It's so good. I think this is the first one that wasn't mixed by Kurt Ballou. Kurt Ballou being credited as executive producer on this, which is kind of funny, which either means he like played everything, right, or either he like unlocked the door at God City and let them in, or
he definitely did play on this record, because there are a bunch of I think it might actually have been on this song where they point this out, but there's a lot of like heavy plus feedbacky guitar that's happening that like is a thing that like it's not something that only he can do, but it's the thing that he does better than pretty much anybody else on Earth.
Yeah.
And that's really cool.
Yeah, I just this is the one where I'm like, especially listening in headphones, I'm like, this song is. I don't think I've ever heard a song that does this quite in the way that this one does.
No, definitely not. But yeah, I genuinely love this song. It really it's a huge standout on this record for me personally.
I think I agree with that. It's not my favorite song, but it would be in my top few, I think, if I was picking favorites.
Yeah, top 5 for sure. Probably not number 1 though.
Yeah. Next up is A Life So Wonderful. A song that they say in their little blurb is about the deterioration of truth as a social or societal construct. Which they then kind of make fun of themselves for being like, yeah, that's a real original theme. But like, this is when you talk about like constructed identities, and we talked a little bit on the Only Love episode about like information warfare and stuff like that. Like that is central to what The Armed is interested in as a band, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is a wild one. Like production wise, it's interesting because like in a lot of ways this feels as aggressive as what came before it, but like something about the production feels like it's kind of pulling it back a little bit so that it's not like as in your face. Until we get to the part where it's just super cacophonous and like the in like certain parts of the song.
Yeah, this is one where I noted that it felt like the hooks were actually starting to take a little bit of a front seat. Maybe not like mix wise, but like you can, this is a song with a recognizable groove and not quite a chorus, I guess, but there's you can feel the melodic part of The Armed starting to come through a little bit.
For sure.
After that is An Iteration. This is a song that they wrote for Only Love, but what did they describe it? They said they felt like they didn't deserve it yet. They weren't like ready to become
something along those lines.
Weren't ready to become the band that wrote An Iteration yet on Only Love. And I mean, it feel like it would. I see what they mean. Like it would feel like quite a leap for that album. This is, I think, my favorite song on the album.
This one's really good, yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Thursday. We've talked before on the series about the sort of parallels with the way that those later Thursday albums are produced and mixed. And this feels like it feels like an approximation of more mainstream rock, but filtered through like the grimiest lens. And I think that is kind of the sound of A City by the Light Divided, and I think it's done really well here too.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. Like again, we're not quite on the level of the like production of that album in a lot of ways, but like yeah, it is it is really cool in that way. But yeah, it's still got these cool grooves going on too. But like yeah, this song lyrically is pretty cool. Like I like this kind of like takedown of people kind of cosplaying as working class folks when they are in fact not anywhere near being working class.
Yeah, and specifically politicians, and you see this all the time, especially in Michigan, where it's just like a swing state, and so you get a lot of like big DC types coming and say like trying to prove that they can relate to the blue collar workers or whatever. Like that's got to be like a thing that is they just get so sick of living in a swing state like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this one has a bunch of collaborators on it who are like kind of named in that Apple Music interview. Ben Chisholm's brought up, but he's like kind of all over this album. We've got Nicole Estill from True Widow, and Jess Hall, who was on who also sang on ULTRAPOP. But yeah, it's a cool fucking song.
Yeah. It also has a pretty cool music video.
Yes.
Just, again, more kind of like simple but striking imagery of this guy in an empty office or a warehouse or whatever. He answers a phone, gets this cool like previously on the armed war has changed speech, which is done by the guy who does the voice of Snake in Metal Gear Solid. Which is this band just obsessed with Metal Gear Solid? There's a lot of references to.
There's a lot of Metal Gear Solid. Yes. I think the answer is yes. Okay. But like specifically Dan Green seems to like Metal Gear Solid from what I can tell, because it's usually associated with him in some way, shape, or form in these videos. It seems like. I
don't know anything about those games. Are they good?
I've never played one because I am a fake gamer.
Okay, me too. But
I just know that they're insane because it's Hideo Kojima.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So the kind of similar to the video for the title track. It's a lot of like VHS filters and sort of collage style imagery. But when you get to the credits are extremely funny in this because it's a lot of like Dan as Dan, which is just amusing.
Right? Yeah.
It ends. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, and this one, of course, has two Dans, because I think Dan Stolarski is the one at the Dan at the end. Dan Stolarski is Dan Stolarski.
Is that supposed to be the guy who's like where the camera pans up at the end and it's like another guy sitting next to the couch smoking a cigarette or whatever?
Yep.
Yeah, it's like all the people who appear in this in these videos show up again in their Live at the Masonic Temple thing that we'll talk extensively about in a little bit.
Definitely.
Yeah. Next up is Big Shell, which they talk a little bit about the origin of this song as one where they as a collective, they would do stuff like, we're going to have a few members play a show and have a different few members play a show, and they'll kind of road test material that way. And sometimes they're not even sure if what they're working on will be an armed song or not. And this is one of those songs that I think was primarily written by Kara Drolsagen. Is that how you say her name? Yeah. Who's does the vocals on a handful of songs on Only Love that I think we talked about and really liked. And this is her first big vocal feature on the album. A song about presenting your true self to the world, which they describe as the spirit of ULTRAPOP. I like.
Yeah, this is sick. I mean, I think I've already said this on this podcast, but I love a big Kara feature. And like it's especially cool knowing that like she wrote this one, because like this song is just absolutely crushing pretty much throughout it. The like really heavy part like towards the end just like lives rent free in my head and has since the first time I heard this album. But like just the big screamed like cut your ties with earth part too, like just honestly like this song is a big standout for me. Again, like maybe not my favorite, but like definitely up there.
Yeah, I would agree. This feels like so I'm spoiling a little bit of my takes on this. I think from this point on, I start to get a little bit like feeling like I'm a little the denseness of the production is a little bit too much with no breaks. Because I feel like they typically would throw an interlude in here or like a song or two later, and they just kind of don't do it on this album. Like it just you're just kind of in that wall of sound, like inside of it constantly for like 35 minutes or whatever. Which, not to say that it's a bad thing. Like I think they're achieving exactly what they set out to. This is just the point where I'm like, oh, this is a lot, and I kind of want to change.
Sure, that's understandable. I get that.
Yeah. But then we get on to Average Death, which is this this is, I guess, right as I say this, like this is actually kind of a change of pace for them. I think the way that the drums are like edited and compressed on this sounds really, really neat. Is sort of different than anything they've ever done before. It's this does incorporate more of the pop elements. I think that you can really hear the melodies soar over the song, even though the song itself is like just as like as noisy as they always are. What do you think of Death?
Yeah, no, like this song, like the production is just as thick as the production on Big Shell is, but it doesn't have that like crushing quality, I guess, is kind of where I land on it. There's also some just like really cool vocal melodies on this one. Like I feel like the vocal melodies stand out on this song a little more than maybe any other track on the record. But like we also get like I think kind of again like harkening back to a Thursday thing. This is one of those ones where we get these like really like drawn out legato vocals over these like frenetic drums and like tremolo guitars, and it feels like the vocals are like maybe slipping in and out of time with the instruments, which is a technique that like Jeff Rickley pulled a couple of times over the course of Thursday's discography. And probably will continue to. Apparently, they were in the studio this week.
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
We'll see. Not to talk more about Thursday on this episode about The Armed, but you know that's how I am.
They're both good bands. Fine.
Both good bands. Yeah.
Lyrically, this song is just a pretty bleak song about the abuse of actresses in like old Hollywood.
Yeah.
And getting into the idea of like is the pain that you go through to make great art worth it, or you know, and it's also getting into this idea of like we were talking about earlier, constructed public personas and identities, and you know where the real you gets lost or pushed down in service of your artistic persona.
Yeah. It really does tie into kind of the whole ethos of The Armed, but in a majorly bummer way.
Yeah.
Did you get to watch the video for this one by chance? I know I like added it to the show notes way late because I
did
missed
not
it.
get a chance to watch this one.
You should watch this one. It is visually stunning. It is very like. I don't know if you got a chance to see the like not the alternate album covers, but there are basically like what effectively amount to alternate album covers with like different folks with the ULTRAPOP logo superimposed over them with like very bright colors in the background. This video is that.
Okay, some of that is in the title
just
track
like,
video too.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like a lot of this, like a lot of stuff unsurprisingly, and this has kind of happened in the past too with The Armed, is we get these kind of like cross references between visual elements of the songs. But like, yeah, this is just like very bright, bold color blocking against like these very bright and bold backdrops of people like singing along to the song, dancing, doing other stuff. There's Clark Hughes is definitely one of the people in that video.
Yeah, it's all
against
the kind of stuff that where like you see it, and if you were just watching it on mute or whatever, you wouldn't have a sense of what the music sounds like.
No, not at all. Not even a little bit. But it's a gorgeous video. I would highly recommend watching it if folks haven't.
Yeah, I got to check that one out still. Yeah, after that is Faith and Medication, a song that the band describes as the sound of two Gundams having a dogfight in space, which I think is pretty cool. The thing that sticks out to me musically about this song is the bass lines. It's like sort of jazzy, sort of funky. This is one of the first times in this record where I'm like, ooh, the bass is doing something really interesting for like the entire song.
Yeah, my literal second note on this after the like kind of stereo like ping-ponging noise at the beginning is, wow, sick bass line on this one with sick in all caps.
Yeah.
This one has like what I refer to as chariot type vocals in both like kind of delivery and cadence, like, or tone and cadence rather. Like not to like call it like, oh yeah, this is just a Josh Scogin thing. It's not that at all, but like it does that's the closest reference point I have to what's going on here. But yeah, again, just like super maximal production on this one. Yeah, it's dope as hell.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's feel like the read I have in the song is the song about sort of slowly falling into addiction over years, and the way that takes a toll on your relationships and on everything about yourself. At least that's kind of the read I have of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very fair read. Kind of looking at it right now. Just a lot of like drifting away from folks and from past versions of yourself.
Yeah, that last line,
less of me year after year. Yeah, sorry.
I would say that's just the last line. Like, there's a part of me I hope you never have to come to understand is even more just more straightforwardly like kind of heart-wrenching moment than even this band usually writes.
Yeah, definitely.
Next up is Where Man Knows Want, a song that they talk a lot about Saint Vincent as an influence on this album, and I think Ben Chisholm as a producer working more with kind of coming a little more out of the pop or indie rock world leads to that too. But I think it's really clear in the guitars in the song. You can hear that that sort of indie dancey pop influence that they then filter into their own crazy stuff, because the song gets very heavy by the end.
Yeah, the song does get very heavy by the end, but like my initial note on this is like, this is weirdly jaunty for this record. But a thing that I noticed is I've always noticed this, but like never like took like explicit note of it, is that I do really love the contrast of these like almost like kind of National-esque clean vocals against like Kara screams that are happening in the refrain / chorus thing that's going on. But yeah, we've got this like kind of rockin' jaunty thing going on, and then we have the biggest breakdown on this album without question. And it's just insane from there on out.
Yeah, I had a moment where I was listening, like the first time I was listening to this late last week, I was like, oh, that's I looking at the time of the song, I was like, oh, that's a pretty sick bridge. Like, I could be down with this part going on for a while, and then it just goes on for the rest of the song, getting heavier and heavier.
Yep.
Yep. I don't remember if I didn't really know their music when I saw them live last year, but this seems like it would be such a great live track.
Definitely, yeah. And I'm like 99% sure I saw them play it at Shuba's. I'd need to double check the set list though.
Yeah, jealous of that. How was that in this band in such a tiny room?
Oh my god. Okay. Bad news for anybody who expects me to be the type of person who's in the pit. I got to that show late because it was a Pitchfork after show, and I went after Pitchfork. So I was standing in the back with my friends in their 30s. Which I also was at the time and still am. But it was insane. It was a lot, very thick fog. Lot of the Dan Ozzie description of the show he saw at St. Vitus like captures a lot of that, like without the table and the wine thing. Nor was anybody in a ghillie suit, but like just like thick fog to begin with, like people peeking out, wild strobe stuff going on, lots of crowd surfing in that tiny room that nobody should be crowd surfing in. Just like an insane show. Like just I was already on board with the band at that point, but I was like, oh, I am going to see this band live every single chance I get.
Yeah.
From now on, at like from second one.
That rules. I would like to see them in a club sometime. I've only seen them at a festival.
Well, you should come see them at Talia Hall in December.
I probably should.
It is still not sold out, which is insane.
Let's see.
They did also play that song. I just checked.
Did you have anything else on Where Man Knows Want?
No, just wanted to talk about how huge the outro is, because it absolutely rules.
Top tier moment on this album. Next up is Real Folk Blues, which is another song where you get to hear Kara going off on the lead vocals. This is I feel like I don't have like new things to say about these songs because I think they're just continuing to refine the intensity and the heaviness and the the entire ultra pop sound. It's just still on full blast here.
It is something that I like did kind of pluck out of my most recent listen to this record is that this song is specifically interesting because they're like, for the verses at least, there's almost no harmonic movement in like the guitars and whatnot. Like it is literally one note or one chord for the most part. But like everything that's happening around it makes it so that that's not boring at all. And is in fact like kind of what's holding the whole song together. And then like this one also has that like kind of almost blasé sounding spoken word, which I think is like pretty cool and like not a thing that happens often with this band. But this also is like references a real person a lot, like Masugna Vakers. It talks about Tony Colston Hayter, who hacked into a bunch of bank accounts by apparently using a pitch shifting pedal somehow. Not really sure like how that all worked out aside from like altering the gender of his voice, but like dude stole a lot of money, which I think is like kind of funny and cool.
Yeah,
and he was apparently also the king of acid house in like London back in the day.
All that like old school phone hacking stuff is so cool. The way that you could,
it's wild.
If you knew how to play the right tones and stuff like that, you could get through the entire, phone system and do a lot of really secure stuff. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
They do a lot. It's not kind of, we've talked about a couple of the examples, but they seem to like on this album taking inspiration from like particular countercultural figures or like historical weirdos or whatever. Like, people who espouse some of the same ideas of like, what if we could live sort of fully or more openly or purely, I guess is maybe the best way to put it. That it's this kind of expression that they want to get across with, I guess, kind of like I said, the spirit of ultra pop.
Yeah. One last thing I do want to point out is that the last couple of lines on this one are like, much like a couple songs ago, kind of crushing because it's when is the perfect time to die? I want to be unobtrusive.
Yeah, I was
like, oh damn,
that's a really good lyric.
That's a real downer note to end on, but also sticks in my craw a whole lot.
Yeah. Next up is Bad Selection. This is a big departure for that, even for this album. Because a large chunk of the song is this like electronic sounding beat. It's got like a truly sung chorus with a real hook. And it's just this like the guitars just kind of float around and poke in and stab in occasionally, and then just to build up the tension into like when it does finally get extremely heavy again at the end.
Yeah. This song builds in a very like gradual way that like most of the songs on this record don't. But like it almost sounds like it's just going to be kind of like an electronic-y song at the beginning, but like we've got this like kind of cool like reverse effect stuff happening towards the beginning too. The first iteration of the chorus is like weirdly subdued for this album. But yeah, then it just builds until it ultimately like explodes around 3 minutes in and is like doing the like ultra poppy single instrument everything is all coming at you at once type thing.
Yeah. What do you think of this song lyrically? Like I feel like there's they talk about trying to embrace this kind of uncertainty of whether this is an optimistic or a pessimistic song. But I also think that there's like this lines of like, we're safer alone, we're braver at home, we're all just paperbacks. To me is like the idea that putting yourself out into the world and trying to make something truly original is truly challenging and can even be like really dangerous, which I think is what a lot of the song is about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that interpretation makes a lot of sense. Like this kind of idea of the like kind of choose your own adventure-y, like, is this an optimistic or a pessimistic song? Like, feels like it ties back to kind of that Only Love era, like, outlook on love, where there's this almost saccharine approach that the band takes to talking about love as like the solution to all ills, whereas the album is just this like absolutely like devastating, like there is no love here, and like I guess I can see love as the solution to that, but like damn man, like this is very which way Western man type shit.
Yeah.
But like that feels like it's like kind of distilled into this song, is like this kind of like we are really like genuinely presenting like both sides of this coin right now, and like we do want you to like, we want you to pluck out that meaning for yourself, rather than like having the band tell you, which is like something they've kind of been doing extra textually up to this point, and in many ways still do. Like there's still a lot of talk about that in interviews from this era, like the Dan Green, like we want love to be the focus of this whole project thing.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like literalizing the idea that once you put music out into the world, it belongs to the audience and to the people who hear it and connect to it.
Yeah.
Then we are at the closing track on the album, The Music Becomes a Skull. This one is largely or mostly sung by Mark Lanigan of Screaming Trees, a band that I'm not familiar with at all. But he's got a pretty distinct voice that gives this song a different flavor. They describe the song as a dark and dismal turn at the end of the Sugar Rush. I don't know that Sugar Rush is the term I would use for the rest of the album, but it is certainly a dark and dismal turn at the end of it.
Yeah, it really is. Like this, I don't want to say it sounds out of place, because like there's no way to say that anything the Arms does sounds out of place in a lot of ways. But like, yeah, my literal first note on this is big dark everything, which just kind of feels like it encapsulates the feeling of this song. But like, yeah, Mark Lanigan's like baritone is just like outstanding on this song. And like it just feels like there's this sinister thing happening like just behind the first layer of the song, and it just like creeps in more and more as the song goes on.
Yeah, well, because I think this song is kind of about a celebrity or a politician or a successful person's like fall from grace, I guess, or the idea that like all fame and success and power is transient and is gonna, it's very easy to you lose your moment and someone else takes over, and like, and I think that I think just the idea that success is not permanent or guaranteed at all, and like the important thing is to create authentically is sort of very central to that is kind of the theme of the album, I guess, as I'm teasing it out over the course of these 12 songs.
Yeah, it definitely is. And obviously, as we've discussed leading up to this, like it is very central to kind of just the ethos of the Armed in general. And like, yeah, this song kind of makes explicit like your moment will pass. You need to decide what you're going to do with that. Like just the like, what a brilliant show, now get off, is such a like not dark way of stating that, but like a very very succinct and direct way of stating that. But like, yeah, to your point, like the important thing is like, well, what do you, if we're approaching this from like an art standpoint, what do you do after that? Like, do you keep creating authentically, or like is that moment of release when you're let from the spotlight where it ends for you? Like, was that the important thing all along? And for the Armed, it's abundantly clear that it is not.
Yeah.
Like ultimately the goal of this band is to last forever and keep making cool new shit that will outlast all of its current members.
Yeah. I mean, so what do you think of like, are we far enough removed from this album to look at its legacy and say like this had a genuine impact on a lot of the other hardcore bands, or kind of the hardcore scene? Hardcore is like obviously having a moment right now, And what do you
Right.
think it is? I think you have followed this band a lot more closely than I have. Like, do you see it as an album that has had or continues to have a pretty big impact?
That's a really good question. I don't know. Like, I guess it depends on like what we're talking about with respect to impact. Like what I think this album wants what this album wants to do is to push the Armed as far as they possibly can at this moment in their career. And to that end it is very successful, and I think to that end it definitely informs where the Armed goes from here. Does it inspire droves of other bands to like create something that is novel or like try something that's maybe dangerous in this kind of, you know, leg of the music world? I don't know if it does. I'm not deep in like the hardcore scene at all. Like I kind of receive the things that are big mostly at this point in my life. But I like to think that like this is probably influencing bands that I have never heard of and will never hear of. Hopefully someday I will hear of them. But I imagine that there has to be a like large like subset of hardcore bands that are taking to heart the approach that like this band is taking to their career and like really trying to create something that nobody has ever heard before. I'm just not aware of it because I am very surface level with my engagement with this genre. This genre being hardcore, which is in and of itself a very vast thing.
Yeah, well, and because like I said, I mentioned hardcore as like having a moment. Like obviously, the Turnstile is huge, but I don't draw a line from like this album to to Glow On to Never Enough. Like I don't. I think they're coming from different sub scenes in hardcore. And I was just looking at like who the Arm typically tours with, and it's not like they're not like going out on tour with like your New York hardcore bands or whatever. They're usually touring with hip hop artists or other kind of like genre bending, boundary pushing artists who are like horror. They go out with at some point. I'm just looking at tour posters that I see popping up. And yeah, so it feels like I'm guessing that a lot of these they're probably kind of a band's band still, and like every everyone who makes like interesting heavy music probably is listening to them. But they feel like they're kind of in their own little niche still. But I think, like you said, I think this album will be one that probably is going to be looked back on as more influential, maybe even than we can see right now.
I definitely think that's the case, and I think at this point, like I know that culture churns a lot faster than it used to, but like in many ways, I wonder if we're still a little too close to it to kind of see the long-term influence of it. But I do want to kind of come back to the Turnstile thing, because that is interesting to me, because in a lot of ways I do feel like that band has a similar approach in that like they take a lot of influence from non-hardcore genres and like do blend it pretty well into their practice. And I think that is very in the spirit of what's going on here.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know if it's for the sake of envelope pushing so much as it is like, we want to pay tribute to the music that has influenced us. And it doesn't really matter if it's, from the lineage of hardcore. I think the spirit's definitely there for that band in particular.
Well, the big difference with the Turnstile stuff, I think, is that the like Turnstile is writing songs that actually will get played on the radio. Whereas,
right,
like,
definitely.
Again, I'll bring up again, like, I could play Never Enough for like my parents. And they would get, it's like, yeah, that's a rock song that would be on the radio, but like, I don't think anything on ULTRAPOP is achieving that kind of level of like mainstream success, and I don't think they necessarily wanted to or needed to, but they're an interesting comparison point, and we even compared them way back on our first episode in the series, talking about their use of synth interludes. So yeah, I mean, I think they've clearly like sort of come up on similar trajectories. It's just that the Turnstile is way, way bigger right now.
Right, yeah.
But we should talk about their Live at the Masonic Temple concert film, because this is sort of the last part of this era. This came out about a year after the album. And when a lot of bands were doing sort of COVID socially distanced live streams, and maybe the band set up in an interesting spot or whatever. Jimmy Eat World did some pretty cool ones at different places around Phoenix. This is the Armed's version of that, which of course is far more than just like a performance video, although it is a really good performance, I think. I guess the basic like overview of this is they play kind of like three or four, I guess 4 different sort of sets in of a few songs each in different rooms or levels of the Masonic Temple in Detroit, which I take it as like a pretty historic building, and this whole thing seems kind of like a love letter to the building. You kind of get a tour of it. But
yeah,
and like I said, in typical Armed fashion, it's completely overachieving in terms of COVID era concert films. And it has like a story that ties back to the imagery and mythology that they've built up around this album, around this Daniel Green character, and all of the sort of characters and costumes that have been in these music videos. I did you watch this when it came out?
No, I did not. My first time watching it was actually in preparation for this episode.
Okay, what did you think of it?
It's incredible. It is like it really like truly feels like the culmination of this era. Like there's been a lot set up here, with the book of Daniel, with like the idea of refracting, that is like a thing that appears on that site, that pervades the fandom to this day. The kind of like basic thing that seems to like come out of the church thing is that like there is this kind of like culminating event that is going to happen, and that culminating event is like here because it is discussed in the kind of non-musical parts of the film. Because like, yes, we have this performance, but we also have these like kind of interstitials and intro and outro featuring Dan Green, where, he's either interacting with members of the band or, arriving at the venue in his car with a phone number on it that is the phone number from the Book of Daniel.church site, which I have not tried to call that number. I don't like making phone calls in general. I definitely don't want to call a number where I don't know who's going to pick up. Sorry, folks. I cowered it out on this one, but it is a real number registered to another Dan, not Dan Green, a different Dan in a I think in Dearborn, or like one of the outlying cities outside of Dearborn. But yeah, so like we get a bunch of like plot here, but like just like even if this was just the like concert portion, it would still be sick as hell.
Oh yeah,
because like
it's like we have like
different biomes basically.
Yeah, each section has a very different vibe, a different lineup. I kind of think a lot of these songs are better in this format than they are in the album. I don't know what it is. If there's just something like the playing's a little bit looser, or the mix is a little bit more open, or it's just like I feel like I can pick out individual instruments better because there's only a couple guitars playing. Whatever it is, I was really vibing with this version of the album, even more so than the album proper, I think.
Yeah, it is interesting that like this is called ULTRAPOP Live at the Masonic Temple, and it's not really just songs from ULTRAPOP. Like I actually I didn't look at the track list going in. I just kind of assumed like, oh yeah, it's the album front to back.
Same.
And like starting with ULTRAPOP like it would make sense. But yeah, like there's songs from various points in their career. There's also some new like kind of bespoke stuff that's happening for the like kind of the plot moments that happen between the different performance space shots.
Yeah.
Including the first time that I think Patrick Shiroishi has been involved with this band. So, big moment for me there, behind the like kind of Dan Green monologue that happens before the last bit,
Yeah.
where everything gets smashed, and maybe a human sacrifice happens. Who can say?
The part of him singing on Jupiter with the like flashing red strobes is legitimately scary. Like, I think this is like,
Yes.
If Tony Wolski and Aaron Jones, who directed and shot this respectively, if they want to like use this as a sizzle reel for, their A24 horror movie or whatever, like, they should do it. It's, give them money to make a great feature length movie.
Seriously, I want that so bad now that I've watched this. And like I already kind of had that like in mind from watching the music videos leading up to this, but this is like, yeah, this invokes so much feeling. And like on top of that, like it has this like, it has these like genuinely like cool like kind of subplot thing going on with, again, all of the like kind of characters that have been in all of the videos leading up to this, and then like, yeah, like just the like, it's cool because like this is so like very staged, but we still get like cameramen get caught in shots, because it is in fact a concert video.
Yeah.
And like, given the construction of everything else around it, like it feels like they could have almost tried not to do that. And I love that they chose to, leave it as is, especially because like having 4 camera people running around, getting up in people's faces, like really kind of captures the freneticness of an actual armed show without having to actually be at an armed show
right
in 2021 when we weren't going to shows.
Yeah. I mean, I would just call it essential viewing for any fan of the band.
For real, yeah. And like honestly, if you're on the fence, which it would be, I feel like that might be weird, especially if you're listening to this right now. Like this might turn something for you, honestly.
Yeah. All right. Do you have a random recommendation for this week?
I do, and it's going to be, I guess, more specific than I usually am, because it's not going to be a book of poetry necessarily, but since I've been thinking about Michigan a lot for this series, I wanted to recommend the poem "A Primer" by Bob Hickok. It is a poem that is a love letter to Michigan. I will not read it in full because I would have to find the book on my shelf, and I'm not going to do that. But it's available online. It's not hard to find. But it is just a very beautiful poem that like is both a love letter and like a very realistic look at like kind of life in the Midwest in general, but like specifically living in Michigan, especially among things like the Flint water crisis and the shutting down of factories. That has led to like massive poverty in certain areas of the state. Like I first heard somebody read this poem out loud on a podcast that like often covers poetry, and I had to stop. Like I was biking when I was listening to this, and I had to stop to like collect myself when they got to the end. It's one of my favorite poems of all time. But yeah, if you have 5 minutes to read a poem, A Primer by Bob Hickok. The collection is called Words for Empty and Words for Full, if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, that sounds like something I would very much like.
It rules. I think you will like it a lot, yeah.
Cool. I am going to go in a completely different direction. You recommended a poem. I'm going to recommend a big, very popular movie. Many of you have probably already seen it, but if you have not, go see Weapons. This movie is, just it is a horror movie ostensibly, but it's also like the funniest movie I've seen this year. It has a couple scenes that I like could not watch because of things that make me gross me out. But it's just it's tense, and it's this is Zach Kreger, who wrote and directed Barbarian, is his new movie. And it is just it ramps up tension and then pulls the rug out from under you in ways that I found really exciting and fun. I was like all in on this movie. One of the most fun theater experiences I've had in a long time.
Hell yeah, I'm really excited to see this one. I liked Barbarian a lot. It lost me a little bit at the end.
Yep, same.
But I saw so much promise in that movie that I'm like, I'm on board for whatever he does next. So I'm gonna go see this one soon, I think.
Yeah, I am excited to talk to you about it when you do. That is it for us this week. Find us on the internet at noisefloorpodcast.com or noisefloorpod on Instagram. Talk to us about ULTRAPOP or whatever you feel like talking to us about, I guess. We will be back next week with Perfect Saviors. Yeah, Perfect Saviors is our next one.
Perfect Saviors. Yep.
We will see you then.